All right. Hello and welcome to Essentials of Social Media Marketing. This is chapter 4 on Facebook. This presentation started with 60 slides and I have gotten it down to 16. So these are the key things that you need to know out of this chapter. Again, this is before I get too far. This is for my class. This is not for um, the greater public, but if you happen to stumble upon this like many people have in the past, these are my thoughts, not theirs. So let's go ahead and get started. A really quick overview. Most people know what Facebook is at this point. Uh, it's the largest social network in the world. It is the social network. I'm called that for almost 20 years. And it actually started as a website called thefacebook.com. And in a very famous scene in the movie The Social Network, Justin Timberlake, who plays the Napster guy, tells Mark Zuckerberg, hey, drop just Facebook. And 3 billion people later, we have here a massive platform, one of the most trafficked websites and apps in the world. And Facebook and the Facebook Messenger app are two of the 10 most popular apps in the world as well. In terms of by the numbers, these are not all numbers that you will need to know or memorize. These numbers are actually kind of outdated now that I'm looking at them. But really, the important things are one, it's the number one social network in the world. Two, um, this is an older, more experienced crowd now. In my generation, millennials, I started my Facebook when I was in high school back in 2006, I think it was. It was about the first year it was made available to the public, people that didn't have a college email. And it's a long story. But now today, most of us still have our Facebooks from back in the day. Most people haven't deleted them. And the older generations obviously picked up over the years. One interesting thing that is not in these slides, but I think is very telling, something that's come up recently, is that more younger users are coming into the platform and it's starting to make a comeback because of Facebook Marketplace. As you may know, or you may be a part of, Gen Z is they're very big with thrifting and reusing and make reclamation projects for things like furniture and things around the house. Facebook Marketplace is a great place for that. I've sold and purchased a lot of stuff in there myself, and I highly recommend that as a buying and selling platform. Now, whether or not that turns into Gen Z actually using the platform like the rest of us do, that remains to be seen. But it is a note that I just want to make here as we begin. Um, if you haven't used Meta AI, it essentially works like all the other AI platforms. It's in the app. It's called Imagine now, and it does all the stuff that ChatGPT does all the stuff that Google Gemini does. The one interesting thing here is that it is built into the Facebook platform, so there's a little bit of easier application when it comes if you wanted to post something to your page or profile. I really don't see a huge business case for this quite yet, just because it's easy to, it doesn't, I haven't seen the value proposition for this over the other ones, other than the fact that it's integrated within the meta world that exists. Now, a Facebook page is for a business. It's a tricky proposition. Just like this is going to be a theme with a lot of the social networks that we talk about in the course and throughout this course, where you have to establish a voice, you have to be authentic, and you don't want to use more than a third of your post to actually overtly promote your own stuff. And I mean, very standard. However, when you think about Facebook in particular, you really don't want to be promoting your stuff all the time. And you really need to be authentic. The people that are on there, people don't go onto Facebook for business. They go onto Facebook for personal reasons. They go on Facebook for marketplace, see what their friends are doing. The old adage that I've held with Facebook now, going back about 6 years, is that when I go onto Facebook, I go on there for one of four reasons. One, who's gotten married, who's gotten divorced, who's had kids, and who's died. That's all that I am really there for anymore. I want to see the big life updates. The everyday stuff that a lot of people are posting, I'm not there for that. I don't want to see what businesses are doing every day. I'm there for personal connections that I haven't seen or talked to in a long time. And now that so many companies are on there. I mean, every company is there pretty much. Um, I'm not trying to be inundated with that kind of material. So, what is the strategy here? The courseware says to post at optimal times. I don't, that's one thing I don't do. I'm not about an optimal time. It does not account for time zones. It doesn't account for your audience. That's going to be different for everybody. That is not something to worry about. But use emojis, ask questions, going live, engagement strategies. Those are all very strong, important things. So don't worry about the optimal time thing, but the engagement strategy is important because people are going to engage most likely with images, with photos, and with videos. They're not going to engage with just straight text, especially when it comes from a company page. So you need to figure out, okay, what is the type of content that your audience, not just the whole Facebook audience, what is your audience going to engage with the most? And generally, events, news, launches, behind the scenes stuff, things that have a human element are important. Now, the one thing I don't really like about this is that half of the things on this list are about company products, which we just said 2 slides ago to not do. Um, However, I think this is a really good opportunity to also mention that a lot of people do follow Facebook brands for the deals, for the discounts. However, those are for brands that are known for that. Stores, online e-commerce platforms that are known for having sales. That is a different audience, and it is a fundamentally different way that people engage with brands on platforms that requires a lot of brand building and time. Unless your company is already known for that, that is not something you want to bother with. Instead, think about the individual side. Think about the influencers that you could utilize. Think about how you can do something to engage people and not just products. Um, the content strategy is interesting. One thing I really did like with AI when I used it is I could use AI when I was creating Facebook ads to essentially handle the image element of it. That was really interesting. It saved me a lot of time. It saved me a lot of effort. That was pretty good. That was really about it. It could create other variations of ads, which Google does the same thing with search ads, but I I didn't really think it was that earth shattering. It's worth testing out and seeing if it leads to any better results. But if we think about advertising, I just kind of jumped into that. The Meta advertising platform, second biggest platform after Google. And it when you think about Facebook advertising, that and Instagram are pretty much the same. They are run through the same platform. They are run through the Meta Business Suite. If you haven't used that before, it's a big world. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Um, but really, the one thing, and I totally co-signed this, is that almost all social media marketers that have advertised on multiple platforms, not just Meta, but also maybe Twitter/X, LinkedIn, Pinterest, even TikTok, they all claim that Facebook/Instagram/Meta provides the best ROI. I stand by that. If for whatever reason, that is the place to go when it comes to advertising. But again, it depends on your audience. If your audience is Gen Z, if it's 22 to 25 or 18 to 25-year-olds, that's probably not going to be your audience. It's probably not going to perform super well. If your audience is anything above that, it could work. But again, it depends completely on your audience, knowing who you're marketing to, who you're trying to communicate with, because Facebook advertising over the years has been the best. Um, I personally would not be surprised if we start to see a shift in that over the next couple of years. Um, there's just a lot more opportunity outside of the Meta advertising platform, and with more AI elements cropping up here and there, You never know what exactly is going to be the future of advertising in general. Also, I will say I do think TikTok advertising is almost there. I'll talk about that briefly when the TikTok chapter comes up, but um, I think TikTok advertising almost provides as good of ROI as Facebook, but it all depends on what it is that you're trying to promote, what you're trying to sell, and who you're trying to sell it to. The ads manager, I mentioned the Meta Business Suite. Everything is run through there. I just go to what is it? I guess it's business.facebook.com, and then you go to the ads manager from there. Facebook's targeting is some of the best and most insanely niche. You can get very, very, very specific. Not only can you say location, like, oh, I want to pick a city or I want to pick a country or even a zip code, but you can now you can get down to a single zip code and you can select areas that are related to it, like a voting district for an election, or like the zip code next to it, or the zip code um, that all the zip codes that are nearby. And I use zip codes because that is the smallest geographical area that anybody can target. But also, you have all these other elements to it. There's detailed targeting, which means um, you can target on interests, you can target on demographic information, and you can target on behaviors. Behaviors is the classic. Oh, if I search for this, I'm going to get an ad for that. Where the example I like to use is back when I bought an engagement ring for my now wife. I did some research online and then I went into the store and bought it. But then for the next 4 months, I kept seeing ads on Facebook for engagement rings. I did nothing on Facebook for it, but Facebook talks to the rest of the internet, the rest of the people that have your data. And I like couldn't go onto Facebook in front of my future fiance, now wife, because if she saw one of those ads, I'd know the gig was up. It's a tale as old as time at this point that if you search for something, you're probably going to get an ad for it later, and it that continues to be true today, maybe even more so. There's a classic podcast episode of a now defunct show where they tried to explain how people were seeing certain ads on Facebook because they thought Facebook was listening to them. And it all comes down to the targeting. This is one of the most powerful tools in advertising. And if you understand your audience, you understand their niche, and you can really, really drill down to them to a very finite group, um, you can get very personal and very custom with the content that you're pushing out there. The advertising objectives, this is also important. You need to know upfront what you're going to be advertising if you do it. Are you just looking for awareness? Do you want traffic to your website? Do you want engagement from your posts? Do you want leads to business for B2B? Do you want to promote an app that's very popular right now? And then also there's just sales. You can just look for sales. Pretty straightforward. Um, Last two slides here I want to talk about is something called Facebook Zero, where a lot of brands are talking about how, hey, our engagement and reach is down to almost nothing. And really the point that I think is here is when the average person logs on to Facebook, the first three things that they're going to see are ads, are groups, posts from their groups, and then also posts from their like closest friends, right? Like for me, it's like my siblings. Um, they're not no nobody is going to see a brand's organic post until they start doom scrolling for several minutes at least. That doesn't happen very often anymore with Facebook either. And so as a result, you are really stuck with limited opportunities to connect with people organically. And that brings me to the last slide. And this is probably the best slide in the presentation. And it is, hey, how do you avoid the zero? How do you stop the scroll? That's going to be a question that comes back for all the platforms. Um, Honestly, posting less frequently is probably something to do. Don't post every day. It's just not, unless you're already seeing great results with it, it's just not worth it. And also, you want to post the most important stuff. Um, my kind of mantra going back many, many years is um, if, well, one, when in doubt, don't tweet it out. That's my thing, if you're unsure about something factually. But then also, when you read a post before pressing publish, read it yourself and like, is this interesting? Is it compelling? Because if you don't find it compelling or interesting, the audience won't either, even if they're completely different. You, the person who is actually creating the content and publishing it, if you're not invested in it and you don't like it, how can you expect anybody else to get into it? Um, the point lower left here, utilize storytelling, is an interesting one because it's it's a broad statement, but it's also important that you want to make things personal, you want to make things human, you want to add that human element to the posts. You don't want a brand's Facebook post to look like a corporate corporate lingo is the word I'm looking for. You want it to sound like it's coming from a person, and that's what storytelling is. It needs to come from a person. It needs to have those narrative arcs to it, and it needs to make people feel something, make people feel some emotion. Just posting a lead from a press release, that's not going to do it. Finally, the right side is all about different types of content. You have post content that creates conversation, so something that asking questions, but then also videos. Facebook said almost 10 years ago that um, hey, in 5 years, Facebook's going to be all video. It's about 60% video now, so it didn't quite make it. But there's more video now than there was before. Point taken. The more that brands do with video, with like not just corporate video, not just people shaking hands and getting business done. There needs to be a human element to it. That's where the behind the scenes stuff goes, to Q&A, actually showing a human side of the brand. That's the stuff that's going to do better. Facebook Messenger, and we don't really get into that here, but it is very popular. Everybody uses it. Um, and then, hey, you know what? If it's not working for you, just go to the other platforms. Um, Everybody is on multiple platforms these days. Nobody is on just one, even if they tell you they're on one, they're not. They're on multiple. That's a topic for another day. But, this is just kind of a wrap up here for you. If there's one kind of key thesis statement here on Facebook, it's this. Um, Most brands are not finding the organic value of Facebook anymore. And what I say to that is then just don't do it. Save it for the advertising, save it for the big announcements, the big news, the big videos, the big personal stuff. Don't waste your time posting on a platform that gets no engagements. The analysis element is important. You want to be able to see who's engaging with it. And obviously, if your audience is engaging with your page on Facebook, that's great. Most of us aren't. Most of us don't see it. 90% of B2B, 95% of B2B is not going to see the value out of it. And that's okay. Um, it's still the number one social network in the world. You still got to have a presence. But don't sweat the small stuff, and there's no need to be posting every single day. When just the big ones, the ones that you think will actually do really well. Save Facebook for those big, personal, highly engaging, and compelling posts. And you might just see a little bit better results that way. So that's it for this chapter, and we'll move on to Instagram next.